bend that down.
Pardon?
I'm always trying to get to it. Why, just again.
I just moved mine over
And
Get your off another way.
and then I don't have it.
Go ahead and hit record. On that. Hit that button. Push that button. All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the Stevensville Town Council meeting for special Town Council meeting for Tuesday, April 6, 2021. We'll go ahead and call the roll. Ms. Miller.
Mayor Dewey.
Here.
Councilmember Devlin.
Here.
Councilmember Luddington.
Here.
Councilmember Shroud.
Here.
And Councilmember Vick is absent.
Great, thank you. If you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move into public comments, an opportunity for citizens to speak on items not on tonight's agenda. Are there any public comments this evening? All right, hearing none, we'll graze right over unfinished business and move into new business item A. The item is discussion decision, consent to the mayor's appointment of Macario Mac Sosa to the position of chief of police. The town council by now is pretty familiar with the process we followed to arrive to today and to today in our chief of police recruitment and hiring process. This is the last stage. The council communication in your packet outlines the 9 steps that we've gone through. The final 2 steps would be the police commission review, which occurred this morning, and then your consent to the appointment, which we hope to attain tonight. The police commission met this morning, like I said, and moved and approved the certification of Mr. Sosa as the chief of police. You're all familiar with his background, 20 years of service with the city of Houston and extensive investigative background, etc. So he has been offered and has accepted offer of employment from the town of Stevensville. He's satisfactorily met all of the conditions of the conditional offer. That is the comprehensive background check, the medical evaluation, as well as the the psychological evaluation. All 3 of those came back with satisfactory results. And some results were above board as well. So we're encouraged by that. Per the town of Stevensville salary and wages schedule, we offered a salary of $67,330. There's a transition. The previous individual in this position was paid an hourly rate. We're making this an exempt position with a salary rate. That's really the only change. And that's to help us better predict where overtime lies, and then who works overtime and that sort of thing. So it will, I think, solve some financial constraints that the town has in dealing with non-exempt employees. So with that, I'll turn it over to the town council for discussion or a decision.
I was gonna add, there's a lot of people that don't understand the terms of exempt and non-exempt. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
I can, in my very basic knowledge. You can probably get into the nuts and bolts and hyperventilate over it. Essentially, an exempt employee is exempt from some certain labor standards. One of those being overtime exemptions, and that's primarily the effect on the town of Stevensville, is because this person serves primarily an administrative role and more executive functions, while they still have the operational capacities and their expectations there. their primary functions are that of supervising other employees. And with that, oftentimes comes irregular hours, irregular schedules. And so that's part of the move to an exempt position versus a non-exempt, where we have to follow certain protocols in terms of wages and hours worked with a non-exempt employee. Is that adequately? So this will be the second department head that we've transitioned. The first one was the Public Works Director.
I will make a motion to consent to the mayor's appointment of Macario Max Sosa to the position of chief of police.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Sherwood, seconded by Ms. Devlin to consent to the mayor's appointment of Macario Max Sosa as chief of police for the county. So, any further discussion?
I just like to say I watched your interview with the commission this morning. It was live. It was really nice to hear some of the comments that you had to say and the terminology that you used. Our town is very excited to have you. And I thank you for being here.
I would like to add on to that, Becky. We are extremely lucky to be able to get someone with your experience and talent in a town, small town like this. That's not a very often occurrence. I appreciate your willingness to help us out.
Thank you. I'll add that, in conversations and in beginning a transition process with the existing SPD staff, they're welcoming him very warmly. In fact, he had an opportunity today to interact with the police clerk, and she's, for one, excited, I think, for Mr. Sosa's arrival. We've been able to spend some time together today to kind of get some things in order and narrow down some dates in terms of starting. I think we're right now working towards May 10th as a start date for Mr. Sosa, and that'll give us some time to get things transitioned with the rest of the staff and be ready for his arrival. He's anticipated to attend an equivalency course with the Montana Law Enforcement Academy in Helena. Rather than having to take the full 13-week academy, he's eligible for an equivalency to transfer his post from Texas. And so he just needs to attend 1 week in Helena. That'll occur, we believe, in August or September. And then there's one additional course for DUIs relevant to Montana law that occur as well. So he'll have about 2 weeks of training at the Law Enforcement Academy, and then obviously some other local type training as well. So any further council discussion on consent to the appointment? Is there any public comment?
Jeff Motley, 13 9th Street, Fire Chief. Also, I'm on the Police Commission Board. I'd like to also thank Mac for applying. He's a super caliber person who got here today. And, from this morning, I did ask him a question. What he kind of projected or saw his tenure being, and he hinted to somewhere around maybe 10 years. So if we can keep him that long, we'd be very well ahead of the game. So again, thank you, man.
Any other comment? All right, hearing none, then we'll call for the vote. Ms. Miller?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Schout,
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, the next item of business is discussion decision on project plans for the Jane Thomas Parks Beautification Fund. There's a council communication in the council packet for the meeting that discusses, I guess, an overarching large proposal for the funding that's included in the fund. And just to kind of bring folks up to speed, since it's been a while since this fund's been discussed. The fund was established in 2017 by resolution And it was created because Gene Thomas had named the town of Stevensville as the beneficiary of her estate. That resulted in $75,000 being given to the town of Stevensville for the benefit and beautification of Stevensville's parks. Some processes were initiated at that time, including an endeavor by the park board to do some master planning and establish some priorities for park enhancements. Mr. Sunstein spent some time reviewing some of that material, the meeting minutes from some of those meetings, and then also considering the feedback we've heard from the community over the last couple of years since the fund has been established. So altogether, what the proposal you're hearing tonight is to ask for, more or less, to ask for an appropriation of $50,000 of that $75,000. 25 of that 25,000 of that would go towards renovations in Fall River Valley Park, which were prioritized or identified as priorities for enhancements to parks. The swing set has often been named as inadequate. The structure, we've just kind of evaluating it over the last year, is reaching the end of its useful life, or it has maybe is beyond it. It no longer meets relevant safety standards. It was repurposed from when Bear Mountain Playground was built. Both slides now are dysfunctional. One has been removed entirely. The other will probably need to be removed this summer because they're at a point where they've been overused. So the play structure primarily needs to be replaced. There are also some other enhancements to the park in terms of beautification and functionality, where we've often heard from adjoining landowners, specifically the Vances, where the park abuts the storage units, where there's oftentimes trespass that comes through there, and it's a result of a hole in our fence. So instead of a chain link fence, we'd like to board that up. And we thought, well, gosh, if it's going to be boarded up, why not make it kind of cool for young children? And so you see in your council packet, there's an example there of a log climbing wall. And so that's one idea that we'd like to bring to Fall River Valley as well. The second part of the proposal, before I let Mr. Sunstein speak to the proposal further, is a $25,000 donation to the splash pad project that's kind of gaining some steam in our community right now. The rationale behind this proposal of a donation is that, first and foremost, I want to make it clear, it was not solicited by the organizing group of the splash pad. This is something that the administration is initiated and would like to see the council consider. The council requested of the splash pad committee and of the civic club that a water recirculating system be installed, and that on the splash pad, and that increases the cost of the splash pad considerably, about to the tune of $25,000. So we're not suggesting that the $25,000 gift goes directly to that recirculating system, but to help offset the cost of that system, and so that their project doesn't diminish because of that request by the town council. Our calculations, based on the average water use of a splash pad at the proposed size, is that versus running just fresh water through it just down the drain, the recirculating system would cover its cost in about 4 years in terms of water use to the town of Stevensville. So if the city or the town took over that, when they take over that facility, if we were paying for the water, which in essence we are, we just don't get a water bill, we'll recoup our costs in 4 years from running that system, generally May through October or through September. So that was a consideration as well. The idea is that if the town council approves a $25,000 donation from this fund for that project, that the funds would be given in memoriam of Gene Thomas, and so that some way Gene is recognized on the splash pad with that funding, just to kind of give a permanent stamp of her contribution to the Stevensville Park system. So With that, I'll turn the proposal over to Mr. Sunstein to speak further as additional remarks.
All right, Bobby Sunstang, Parks and Recs Director. So I went through some old meeting minutes, and July 5th, 2017 was when the park board kind of went around and did needs assessments of all of our parks in the community. What they had to say about Father Valley Park was the basketball hoops were missing brackets, shredded nets, fencing was in need of repair. On the northeast edge by the mailboxes, yeah, excuse me, I'm a little shaky. I got my COVID shot, so I'm really good at public speaking, but for some reason I'm nervous right now. So they said swings are okay. That was 4 years ago. In my opinion, swings are not okay anymore. Says benches, paint or stain. Pavilion is what they asked for here. That's a pretty expensive project. So I kind of have the idea of a few new picnic tables that are ADA friendly, as well as a new trash receptacle that could go in there, as you'll see in your packets. Main signs need repaired and painted, and remove grass off the basketball courts, and then also address that hole back by the basketball court. I also found a letter in here from one of our community members, pinpointing 10 different things at Father Valley Park that needed addressing. Safety issues with ruts in the ground at the southeast corner. That's something that I think we've already addressed a little bit when we did our new flagpole over there. We smoothed out some of that area. I think we can readdress that again. They say this is in April 11th, 2018. Swing set is in disrepair and is missing 2 swings. One of those is back, but it's not in great shape. Also says there's exposed sprinkling wires, which are still there. Safety issue, that would be part of our project. Fence at the northwest corner was cut. Once again, that's where we're from, pitching the idea for a climbing wall. Some trees that needed to be trimmed, I think those have been addressed since this was given to the park board. Issues needing a bike rack, which is something that I would like to talk about as well. More park benches need to be installed around the park. And the last one was we need to upgrade playground equipment in this park. Recommend spending a little money to add some decent equipment here. Lewis and Clark Park is not the only park in this town. And I do agree, I see a lot of usage at Father Valley Park. Piggyback on what Brandon said about the play structure is, yes, one slide is removed because it was completely cracked this winter all the way through. Extreme safety hazard. One I have patched with Gorilla Glue. It is a smooth surface at this point, but much more flex. That slide's coming off. It's already, we had to remove a little corkscrew that's down. So all that's really left on that play structure is one set of monkey bars and a little climbing rack. So out of the 5 options, there's only 2 that are usable at this point. We have multiple bolts around the ladders climbing up to those monkey bars that are stripped. I've gone up there and done everything I can. I've changed the bolts, but just the way that the brackets fit, we would definitely need to do that. And I mean, to repair that structure is going to be a few $1,000s at least in its own right. So I think it's time that we get this going, and that's kind of the hope, is to revamp that park and have 2 great parks in our neighborhood, not just Lewis and Clark Park.
Oddly enough, unlike the rest of the building materials in the country right now that are skyrocketing, these structures aren't. They're actually coming down a little bit, and they're running we realize this, they're running a lot of really good deals on structures right now, and actually a lot of equipment like that is coming even further down, and they're really doing a lot of promotions because of the American Rescue Plan funding that's coming out. Our emails, we just noticed since like Thursday or Monday, we've just been like inundated with sales emails, and every single one of them has like a tie back to, well, you can use it. The rescue plan did this. This is eligible. This is an eligible expense, which is interesting. But back to the point, play structures are somewhat on the list and are very affordable right now, and we'd like to take advantage of that climate to benefit the community. Father Valley Park serves as maybe more of a secondary regional park for the community, where we talk about park uses, and I think we had this conversation with Burnt Brook Estates. Lewis and Clark Park is certainly a regional park where it serves a broader spectrum of the area. But Father Valley also doubles as that neighborhood park. I think even more so than maybe Lewis and Clark does, where if you're on the south side of town, that's the park you primarily would use if you just want to walk. It serves obviously the Dayton subdivision where it's located, but it also serves Georgetown subdivision that's underserved by parks. There are no parks in that subdivision. So if you look at how the community is served in terms of the parks infrastructure, the south end of town is underserved right now. So that's part of why this proposal came forward. Rather than waiting into July to ask for the appropriation piece of that in the new budget, we kind of wanted to get this ball rolling sooner rather than later and get some momentum going so that summer wasn't mostly over before we actually ordered some equipment. Our intent here tonight is to ask your permission to make the appropriation, and then we would roll, if any funds are spent before the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, which is pretty likely, we will roll that into a larger budget amendment that is needed for some other funds as well, with unanticipated revenues and COVID expenditures. So you will have to do it a budget amendment anyway, no matter what. We wanted to roll this opportunity in that as well, if you'll support the cause.
How much remains in the Gene Thomas Fund?
If you appropriate the $50,000, then $25,000 would remain in the fund. There's 75 in there today, and that's what we started with.
Correct, but I thought we had approved 5,000 for the tables.
That project never actually came through.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the project plans for the Gene Thomas Parks Beautification Fund as proposed by Parks and Rec.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Ludington, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve the Parks and Recreation project plans for the Gene Thomas Parks Beautification Fund as proposed. Any further council discussion?
I'm slightly hesitant using this amount of money prior to having another park board meeting. We do have a meeting scheduled for April 12th, which is Monday at 6:30.
Has the park board not had an opportunity to discuss these items?
All of these items have been discussed except for using the Gene Thomas money for the recirculating system in the splash pad.
What's your hesitation?
It's a lot of money donated to the town, and I do feel it's being spent wisely. I just would like to go over it with the park board and have that opportunity prior to.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think a problem that I've heard over the years with this fund is that the money has been made available. Council continues to choose not to use it for various reasons. And I have heard some disgruntled people in that this is exactly what this money was for. It wasn't donated to just sit in the funds or just sit in an account and say, we have these funds, but we can't use them. I think there's been proposals made in the past that haven't passed for fear of using this money. So I just wouldn't want to see us get in that same, we have the funds, this is exactly what it's for. We have the opportunity to use it, half of it in the area that we requested. That wasn't part of the park board asking, we requested that. So I think at least half of that we're responsible for with or without the park board's blessing. I'd just be cautious.
So to speak a little bit to your point, Patrick, we took a unique approach, Bobby and I, when we discussed how this process would unfold. We took a really unique approach that isn't, I think, traditional for this organization. And you can look at it maybe in a less constructive way and look at it and go, well, we're bypassing the park board. But really what the intent here, and I should have been clear about this when we made the proposal this evening, was if the council approves the project plans, the final details of these plans have not been knocked out. We have not picked play structures. We basically said, if the wish list were tallied, it could equal 25,000, and it could result less than that. So Bobby's intent is to really take a lot of these pieces that need to be fleshed out back to the park board, and say, okay, council's given us the money. How do we want this to look as a community? It's not a normal approach compared to how we've approached it from other boards. And part of that was we recognize that the park board is an advisory board and doesn't have appropriation authority. And so we thought, well, let's give them the money and say, yes, you can spend it. And you guys work with, the guys, the park board, work with the Parks and Recreation Department to make this the best possible project possible. Recognizing that the town council probably, as fun as it would be, didn't want to sit here and micromanage how that funding was spent on a specific structure or a specific project. Does that kind of address your concerns
it does.
regarding input?
And thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
That does address some of the concerns I have.
Can I speak right now, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when I initially brought this up was when I reached out to you, because I really wanted to get that park board going. I really, kind of like Brandon said, we wanted to start the conversation, get this to be a possibility, and then we can get it going and try and get it done so we can have it as soon as possible. And that's why I really wanted to get that park board together, because I'm not trying to plan this, design this park. I want the park board to be there and do that. I just want it to be facilitated and get it done as quickly as possible. It's my goal behind that, so.
Any further council comment? Is there any public comment on the motion?
Vicky Motley, 318 9th Street, and I am on the park board. I think it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. I was shocked that this was on the agenda tonight. We have a meeting the 12th. I think that's when it should have been presented. I think it could have been something presented to you. This is what we're thinking about doing, but it needs to go through the park board. I realize it's only advisory, but it kind of feels like we don't really care what you think. I mean, that's my opinion. I've been on it a long time. And yeah, we have had issues with council approving funding and getting that going, but it's not for lack of trying. And we did have a list, and I just think that we need to reevaluate the list and look at what is going on before you guys approve something. I had no idea that the picnic tables in Creamery Park had not gone through. So I just think that there's got to be better communication, and I think the park board needs to have some say in this. So.
Any further public?
Kind of to piggyback on Jeff Marley, 13th Street, piggyback on what Vicky said. We've always had trouble trying to seat a park board. Who will volunteer? Who will step forward? People have stepped forward, and now we have a park board in place. But the council's going to go ahead and say, no, we're approving you spend this money without even their consent. Why would they want to volunteer to be on the park board if you guys are going to circumvent their ability to bring forward ideas and projects to you for your approval? It would seem to me that however you wanted to spin it, Mr. Mayor, you did a great job with that. But really, you're really circumventing that volunteer park board that's volunteered time to step forward and do that. And then we'll turn around and go, well, we can't get volunteers. We can't get volunteers. Well, why would you want to volunteer if you're going to be circumvented anyway by basically a backdoor stab at this thing? It just doesn't make sense to me to do that without prior park board involvement in that. I mean, the cart hasn't rolled out of the barn yet. You still have a chance to bring it back. Knowing that the council is in favor of spending that kind of money out of that fund may help the park board put together a decision and bring it forward to you. That's great, but I really don't think this is a time to change the rules of engagement, so to speak, and do it a different way than what we've always done in the past. So I'd encourage you to let it go to the park board first and let them bring their ideas back to you as the council to make the final decision.
Further comment, Ms. Devon?
I guess I'm confused. I asked the question if you as a park board had discussed these items, and the answer that I received was yes. And now I'm hearing that this wasn't discussed, or I guess I'm really confused as to what's,
We have discussed various needs in our Valley County, or excuse me, our Valley Park, but we hadn't gotten into the very
the
specifics
nitty gritty part of it.
that's being presented to us.
Gotcha.
I don't believe the climbing wall has ever been discussed. The replacement of the equipment has been discussed.
Okay.
I would like to say that my motion was just appropriation. I have no idea what the park board can do whatever they want. They can decide not to spend the money. They can decide to spend part of the money, all of the money. I'm just saying the money is available. It's an appropriation to the park board to use as they see fit. If they want to use it at Fowler Valley Park, great. If they don't want to use it, great. I never intended to circumvent there. I just wanted to try to give them some authority to spend some money instead of the other way, because I kind of see it the other way around, that you guys put together a project and you come to the council and the council says, no, I would rather not see that. I'd rather say, here you go, take some money that was intended to be used for this. I mean, Jean lived down the street from Father Valley Park, so I think that she would be very happy to know that we were trying to spend some money to try to keep that place up. And you guys do what you want. I mean, I'm not saying that this is what I would like to see. I would like to see some money spent in Father Valley Park. It is an underserved area. And if the park board decides that they don't want to spend the money there, that they would like to do something else, then I would, I certainly am not saying that this is what you have to do. I'm not saying that at all. And please don't take it that way. And Patrick, if you could, make sure that the park board knows that I'm just saying that the funds are available. Design it how you want, spend it where you want. I think you guys know that Father Valley Park needs some attention. And as far as the other 25,000 for the splash deck, like Jamie said, I think that's something that the council really wanted. And I would personally like to see us be able to recirculate water there than since we're already leaking so much. So I certainly hope that the park board doesn't see this as an attempt to circumvent their authority.
Ms. Devlin?
I'll kind of piggyback off you. I guess we're piggybacking today. I don't think, and I don't think ever it's been the intent of the council to micromanage how money's spent. I think we're given proposals, we're given ideas, and we are give that blessing. I guess I'm with you. I don't really necessarily care how that money's spent in Ravalli Park as long as you see fit. That's why you're on the advisory board. That's your job. That's not our job. It's not to see that, we make sure that the slide's accounted for, this is accounted for, that's your job. That's why you're on that board. We have a board representative from the council on that board. I have no intentions, nor do I want to micromanage any part of that project. I want to say, here's our blessing. You have money, please do with it as you see fit. We trust you being on that board to make those decisions. And I'd like to see that follow through. I don't want to make that decision.
Is there any further public comment?
Victoria Howell, is this on?
No, there you go.
Victoria Howell, 609 Middleburg Park. I'm on the splash pad committee, and I just wanted to say how pleased I am that you're considering this. It's turned out to be a huge project. We never asked you for any money, but we certainly would appreciate that part of it. And we did meet with the park board on that. So I think probably what they're talking about is Father Valley. And then I just wanted to mention that we eventually intend to bring forward the second part of our project, which would be a smaller splash, maybe not a splash pad, pad, but some type of water features at Father River Valley as well, once we get this one completed. So we're not done. We'll keep going. So, thank you.
Further public comment?
So for clarification, your appropriation, shoot. Lost my thought there. The motion you made, Paul, was to appropriate the 50,000. That also included the $25,000 donation.
To the splash deck. and
Yes,
for-
to the splash deck.
Yeah, and for
So
the-
25 and 25, 25 to the Valley, and 25 donation to the splash deck project, right?
Correct.
Okay, so really the park board doesn't get a say on that $25,000 donation.
To the splash deck.
Right.
No, because that was one of the things that council talked about when that project for the splash deck came up was, Joan mentioned the cost of a recirculating pump and, or just using water. And I think the consensus among the council was that we try to recirculate the water instead of constantly using fresh water. Since we're already leaking, 80%?
Something like that, 14 million gallons. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further public comment this evening? Oh, is there any further council comment?
I guess my concern still is in River Valley County, in River Valley Park. For some reason, I want to say River Valley County. If the park board makes recommendations or disagrees with, the purchase of the wall or the play equipment, how much power does the park board have to say, no, I mean, we are an advisory board.
The intent of the advisory board is to advise the council and by way of the department, how that funding is utilized or how it may be best utilized for the community, right? Ultimately, and I realize some people won't like hearing this, ultimately, at the end of the day, every dime of the Parks and Recreation's budget is under the authority of Mr. Sunstein and myself. Once it's appropriated by the council. The advisory board is there to provide public input as to how to prioritize that funding. And so Mr. Sunstein's found records from past park board discussions. He's brought those together as a proposal and brought that forward to council to say, here's a list of items that the park board has discussed and would like to address. Please put some money towards these causes so we can address them. The council then can say, yes, we think that these causes should be addressed, and Mr. Sunstein will go back to that park board on the 12th and say, okay, we've got some money. What do we want to do? How are we going to implement these ideas and these plans? I mean, the play structure isn't something he cooked up all on his own, laying awake in bed at night. That was something the park board desired. And he's championing that on their behalf to say, let's throw a little money at it and see if we can make it work. And that implementation is going to be pushed back on the park board. And they'll advise Mr. Sunstein, this is the color slide and this is the style of monkey bars we really like, and we think this will serve our neighborhood well. Great, make the purchase. So that's how we envisioned the process playing out. And it's not unique, philosophically to how that was, I think, intended to be set up. You identify a problem, find the funding for the problem, you get the funding for the problem, now go implement a plan to fix it. That was really, how we envisioned that playing out. And I think it's a fair model. Is that?
I guess, Vicky, how long have you been on the park board?
Probably 6-7 years.
Okay, so I want to make, were you aware of that letter that was written and the recommendations that were made to River Valley? Because if there's nobody on the park board that is aware of that, then I think we have a valid plan, so to speak. Okay.
It may have been presented to the city council, but it never came before the park board.
Are you talking about the letter that Bobby read?
I'm talking about the recommendations.
This is from the minutes of the meeting.
The
July
proposal
5th,
is in your
2017.
packet, no.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
What, Bobby, what you referenced, because here's my point. If all of those were brought up and nobody's on the park board from that time period, we have a brand new park board, so to speak, that should be engaging in this whole vision. If there's people that were on that park board that are still here that are aware of all those, then I think we say, here's the money and you go do with it what you want. You
The
know what I mean?
the latter is the case.
The latter is.
The letter came from Jim Cruz and was presented to the park board.
I don't think it ever came to the park board.
It was.
I don't remember it being in the minutes. And I've written the minutes for the park board since I've been on it. So yeah, I am aware of the list that we went through going. Ooh,
It's,
Um,
yeah.
It's having moments just.
that talked about all the different concerns we had at the different parks. And we were in the process of prioritizing that. To my knowledge, the Gene Thomas money had to be approved by the park board, any expenditures before it came to the city council. It wasn't something, I mean, we approved the $5,000, was it $5,000 for the picnic tables in Creamery Garden Park to be brought and put into the budget. But it is my understanding that the park board sets the amount that goes towards this is to be spent, not the council setting the amount for the park board. I mean, I thought they had to approve the amount prior to coming to the city council, has been my understanding of that. So, for what it's worth.
So what, like, what is it? What are the requirements and the way that this is supposed to work?
The resolution that establishes the Parks Fund in summary says, use it for beautification of parks. Let me pull it up. So, I can read this very quickly. I'll just, in its entirety, it's not very long. September 12th, 2016, the town of Stevensville was notified that Jean Marie Thomas, a resident of the town of Stevensville, designated the town of Stevensville as beneficiary in her last will and testament. Whereas the last will and testament of Jean Marie Thomas specifies the estate funds be designated to the town of Stevensville for the benefit and beautification of its parks. Whereas the town council recognizes the need to establish a fund separate from all others for these revenues. Therefore, be it resolved by the town council of the town of Stevensville that the town will establish a special fund to be known as the Jean Thomas Parks Beautification Fund, into which monies received from the estate of Jean Marie Thomas shall be placed and held for expenditures for the benefit and beautification of the town of Stevensville parks. Passed and adopted the 23rd day of February 2017.
So there's no procedure around how to spend the funds or who can authorize them or.
No, it falls under the same procedure as all of the other funding and all other, every dime that the town deals with has some sort of procedure, and ultimately, it all funnels through the same place, which is here at the town council. So I mean, whatever process the council wants to follow is acceptable to the administration. It was not our intent to circumvent the Parks Board. In fact, I think I've explained already, Mr. Sunstein, and my intent was to take a check to the Park Board and say, look, we have some money finally, let's do something with it. That was the intent, was to actually generate some excitement on the Park Board and maybe inject some life into it because it's been dormant for so long. If the town council would rather see a recommendation come from the Park Board formally on this proposal or some other proposal specifically, then we'll facilitate that process and work through it. It's your pleasure. We'll do whatever your direction is. But I guess speaking to the process we followed, and some of the accusations that have been placed, that wasn't our intent at all. We had no intent to do that. The park board, in terms of the items that Mr. Sunstein found the letter in the park board minutes, correct? And Mr. Cruz came, as I recall, to a meeting and read those items to the park board. The park board has seen some turnover from a few members, but there are some members who remain that have brought together that list. But again, that aside, and procedure, all of those things, whatever the council's desire is this evening is how Mr. Sunstein will march forward and complete it.
I will withdraw my motion and wait for a recommendation from the park board.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Ludington's motion's been withdrawn and Ms. Devlin concurs with the withdrawal.
I concur with a motion to wait for the next.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll
however you
entertain a
wanna say
motion
that.
to defer the proposal
Thank you.
to the park board.
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Ludington and seconded by Mr. Scher to defer the proposal presented tonight to the park board for recommendation. For the council discussion. Public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Miller?
Councilmember Devlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Ludington,
Aye.
Councilmember Short.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Town council comments? You can wait till Thursday if you'd like. You have a little few more
Stay
days to
tuned.
think about it.
Stay tuned for Thursday.
Bird Fork Place.
Mhm.
I understand they're taking out applications. And the roads and sidewalks are not finished.
Correct, they do not have a certificate of occupancy for the property, so. Now that, knowing the funding of how that project works federally, they would need those to fill to actually occupy, they'll need those certificate of occupancies. They've been taking applications now for some time, knowing the project.
And the building inspector is gonna offer those certificates?
Yes.
Okay.
The building inspector, building official signs off on those certificates of occupancy. So, and as I understand, like at this time, they maybe have 2 apartments, but I think they're phasing when the apartments are completed, but they do have to substantially complete a lot of that groundwork, that site work in terms of roads and streets and alleys and gutters and all those things. They have to have all that done in order to occupy the structure. Any further town council comments? All right, notice I didn't put an executive report on there. You're
Thank you.
welcome very much. With that, we'll adjourn. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Thank you.